In this lesson, we'll work on improving some of the materials that are found throughout our scene. Okay, so picking up right where we left off in our previous lesson, we have our environment set up, we have some lights that have been set up for us, but now what we want to do is maybe make some adjustments to some of these materials. So in some of your earlier lessons, whenever Josh was going through the material setup process, these materials will work fine if you are going to be staying in the default scanline render, or if you're going to be doing something that maybe doesn't require just a super high level of realism. But what I find is whenever it comes to working with things that are a little bit more realistic, and whenever you're working inside of MentalRay, there are actually some better material options that we can use. So for example, let's come in and just start to replace some of the materials that we have here with some of the specialized MentalRay materials. So what I'll do is go ahead and I'll tap the M key on my keyboard to pull open my material editor. Now this is going to start to get a little bit tight here because I'm going to be working with both the material editor and some of my viewports out here. So we'll just try to make this work as best we can. What I'll probably try to do is go ahead and just close out that material browser and save a little bit of room over here. There we go. We'll see if we can make that work. So first thing I'll do is go up and let's just clear the view. So we'll just go to Edit, Clear View. It's going to be right down here, even though it is being cut off in your viewport. There we go, Clear View. Okay, so we'll try that. And what we might actually do is maybe over here in this view, press the C key, go to our shot cam over here so it's a little bit easier for us to actually work and see some of the things over here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is try to take some of these materials and replace these with MentalRay materials. So in my material editor, we'll just switch to this eyedropper tool. We'll click over here to sample the material off of this wing and pull it in here. Okay, so here is the wing material that we're using, and it's just a standard material. Now what I like to use whenever rendering in MentalRay is the MentalRay Architectural and Design material. So that can be found if we just right-click, go to Materials, MentalRay. It's going to be this very top option here, this Arch and Design. Now this is pretty much a universal material, so we can simulate anything from metal to wood to glass and anything in between. So this is going to be a really, really good just sort of all-purpose material. So essentially what we want to do is replace this standard material with a new architectural and design version. So let's first start to replace some of these connections. We have, first of all, this composite, which is going into the diffuse color. Let's go ahead and take that and plug it into the diffuse of our architectural material. And with this little bitmap right here, that is going into the bump. Let's do the same over here. So we'll take this material, plug that into the bump. So now it's essentially a mirror of what we had previously. Now the one thing you will notice is that this wings, it does have more of this green material to it, where this architectural and design material really doesn't. So what we need to do is probably make some adjustments to this composite material. So let's double click on this standard. Let's grab this green color swatch, let's copy that. And now let's go into our composite. I'm just going to double click here, and I'm going to add a new layer on top of this texture map that we set up in one of our earlier lessons whenever Josh was going through some of the texturing stuff with you. So let's come in here, and I'll just double click up here, or just click once to add layer 2. Let's click on this little button right here to color correct this texture. That'll plug in this little color correction. And right here with this default color, we can choose paste, and that will paste that green color back in. Now I just take this layer 2, drop it below layer 1, and there we go. Now we have some of this green color that's been mixed into this composite, which will allow that green color to come into this architectural. So essentially what was set up previously was we were using this standard material, and Josh was using this ambient color here to bring some of the green into it. But with this architectural and design, we really don't have that, so we have to actually come in and add some green back here in the composite to make that filter through. Okay, now let's double click on this architectural and design material, and let's first of all just see what is going to happen if we apply this. So quick and easy way, if we want to take this existing material and now replace this new one, we're going to take our first material, our original one, right click, we're going to go to Select, and select by material. Now 3ds Max will come through here, and if you look, it will automatically select all the objects that are using that material, All we have to do is hit select. Now it selects them over here in the viewport. And now with those objects selected, we'll just take our architectural material, right click, and assign material to selection. And now we can see, if you look at these little white triangles that are in all four corners of this material, that's showing that this object that is selected is now using that material. You can see the triangles have completely disappeared from this little color swatch, or this little preview. What that indicates is that this material is no longer being used by any objects in my scene. Okay, very nice. So let's come in here, and if we want, we can take a quick render of this just to see what we have. Okay, and now we have this material that has been assigned. You can see it's definitely quite a bit more reflective than these previous materials on here. So depending on the look that you're going for, you can come in here and start to change the reflectivity on this surface. In my case, what I will do is go ahead and turn on this highlight plus final gather only. What that'll do is essentially remove any true reflections, and instead it's going to just use specular highlights to simulate the effect of reflections. It's a little bit faster to render, and for something that's going to be kind of a really soft, sort of non-shiny material, this could be a quick and easy way of getting that type of a surface. So pretty strong specular highlight in this case. So let's come back here, and we can start to take things like the reflectivity. We could maybe drop that down a little bit so our specular highlight's not quite so strong. And another thing that I find really useful is in this architectural and design material with this BRDF, we can turn on this Fresnel reflections. And what that'll do is simulate the way that reflections actually work in the real world. So typically, in real life, the more directly you look at an object, the less reflective it is. But the more indirectly you see a surface, typically that's where the strongest reflections occur. That's called a Fresnel function, and that is exactly what we can start to get with this architectural and design material. So now these leading edges of the wing that are most directly pointed toward us should not be as reflective as some of these outer edges that are pointed away. So there we go, very nice. Okay, so now if we wanted to, let's say, increase the strength of this bump, that's pretty easy to do. We can just go back to our architectural design material, and just like we did in the earlier texturing lessons, we'll just take our bump and start to increase that bump strength. Maybe bring that up to 0.6 or something like that. There we go. That's starting to look quite a bit better now. Okay, so essentially we're going to go through this process of going in and selectively replacing pretty much all of the standard materials that are on this aircraft. So now that I've got this started, what we'll do is continue this process in our next lesson. So once I've made this change, I no longer need this standard material. So now, if I come in here and just clear the view, that should clear everything out. And if we have any materials that are no longer being used, which is what we had just a moment ago, at that point it will completely delete that material from the scene and it's no longer accessible. Now, this material over here that we have on the wing, this is the material that we just replaced. Now, we see that this shows up a little bit more of a gray color. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. The only problem that we have here is that the texture is not visible. So, if we wanted to get that back, we could always come back to this material, right-click, and if we wanted to see what the texture looked like, we could just go in and turn on the either show shaded material or show realistic material, either one. And now when we turn that on, we can see the textures once again. Okay, very nice. So what I'm going to do is continue in the next lesson. We'll start to make some further adjustments and start to replace some additional materials all across this scene. Now, if you're already pretty comfortable with this, you can go ahead and skip over the next lesson if you want. But if you want to continue to follow along with me and make some adjustments, we'll continue that in the next lesson.